fires in Arizona, but
yeah. Well, we're live, my friend. Hello, Laura.
hello. How are you, Melissa?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for joining me here with our lovely Facebook Live that we do on Thursdays. Liz had a family event happen, and so she's not going to be with us for a couple weeks. So I'm super happy you are here to be able to join us as we talk about amplifying women's voices in the mortgage industry. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Today, I'm super thrilled that we are highlighting our sponsor, Andy Blackwell Coaching. And Andy was in the real estate and mortgage industry for a long time, and now she's starting to coach folks. So we're super excited for her to sponsor our Facebook Live today. So that's really great. I am so happy you're here, and I'm wondering if you'd introduce yourself to our audience real briefly.
I can certainly do that. So my name is Laura Brandao. I am the president and the only woman partner of AFR, which is American Financial Resources. Been in the mortgage industry since my early 20s and had many different hats and roles. But in 2007, I started AFR Wholesale and built it to a national leading wholesale provider across the country. In the last couple of years, I have really taken on the mission of looking behind me and to the side of me to be able to pull women forward within the mortgage and real estate industry. And that's kind of how we met. And I am honored to be here today to speak about some of those great things that we're working on.
That's so good. I'm so excited. I was really, really excited. I just finished binge watching the morning show because my husband's working away. And so I get to watch whatever I want to.
That's always good.
And
you
actually,
control
you're right.
Remote.
Right. And Liz had told me you need to watch the morning show. It's so great. And so I did watch it. And one of the things that I really realized is how they portray women walking the tightrope of leadership. Like, we're in charge of our lives professionally to a point, and then sometimes it's a man's world. And, that's really one of the reasons Liz and I created this conference, was to be able to bring together women producers to connect with other women, to really think about how we experience leadership and expansion and growth in our lives. And so I'm wondering if you could start with talking about what's different, what your early experiences as a woman in the industry and how that has shifted over time.
Yeah, it's been quite a metamorphosis. And I would say we are still in that metamorphosis. We certainly have not become the butterflies yet, but we're in the process of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came in, it 100% was a man's world. I mean, it looked very cookie cutter. Almost every single executive looked similar. Mm-hmm. And you really did not have opportunities as a woman to get that seat at the table. And, people often ask me, Laura, if there was one thing you would change about your career, looking back, what would it be? And the thing that I reflect a lot on that, because I'm someone that I believe everything in your life happens to get you to the next step. So you really can't look backwards. But there is one thing I would recommend to others out there right now. And that is showing up and making yourself known within the industry. Sometimes as women, we like to and it's funny, I just said this at an event yesterday where I said, I find that sometimes women like to stand back and evaluate what's happening before they jump in. But we can't do that because the gentlemen, they actually jump in first and then they're like, heck, maybe this doesn't work, and they retreat. But we stand back and then we wait. I'm telling you that we can't do that anymore. We have to show up. We have to use our voice, and we have to be present. And the biggest change that I've seen, and something that both of us are very involved in doing this, is that we have to start having these events where women feel very comfortable. Because years ago, and I just last night, I was at an MBA New Jersey networking event, and I was having a conversation with one of my young ladies that's part of my women's committee. And she was thanking me for building our women's committee, because now half the people at these networking events are women, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But she said to me, Laura, I was at an event a few years ago And I felt like chum in a Shark Tank.
Ooh.
She said that after 1 hour, she had to leave. She felt almost violated with the amount of men that were coming up to her and trying to buy her drinks and trying to have conversations, and the body language was not professional. And she felt so uncomfortable. She left. And that was only like 4 years ago, not 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I think that's such an important point. And it gives me the chills, like when you say chum in a Shark Tank, because I think so often this is why we hold back, right? Like, this is why we really resist pushing forward and moving forward in these situations, because it is so complicated in a room full of men.
Yeah.
And that's why creating spaces where women can be together and be present and be comfortable and also feel empowered and centered in that idea of, when you get into that Shark Tank, you're another shark, you're not the chum. And I love that, because I really was coaching one of my clients about this last week. Like, they were like, I don't know about putting myself forward. And I go back to, they've done a lot of research on what happens when people decide to run for office. So when men decide to run for office, like, they wake up, they're shaving or doing whatever they're doing, and they're like, I'm going to run for Senate. And then they like call 5 of their buddies and they're like, dude, I'm going to run for Senate. And their buddies like start throwing them cash. But when women decide to run for office, they wake up, they're doing whatever in the mirror, and they're like, I'm going to run for office. And then they're like, but first I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. Women have to be asked 7 times directly to run for office before they decide to run. And I think this is a really important thing. I liken it to women in mortgage, because women producers are much the same. They have to be asked over and over again to take risk, because we're chumming a Shark Tank.
That's right. That's right. And it's interesting, when I had my first networking event with these ladies, and I'm using the same girl again. Okay. And she's beautiful. She is a gorgeous young girl. Okay. Good for her. Awesome. She came into, it was a golf event. So obviously it was very male heavy, right? But I get all the women, we're showing up. We're going to the dinner. If you know how to play golf, you get out there. But no matter what, we're coming together because we need to represent and do business at this event.
That's right.
She comes in, and I'm like mama of these people, right? I'm watching all my girls. I'm like, all right, where are they? Who are they talking to? Do they need help? And I'm watching someone that has had a few cocktails already. And I'm watching his body language with this young lady. And I stepped in and I walked over and I put my hand out and said, hi, I'm Laura Brandao. Nice to meet you. What do you do? Because I needed to separate what was happening. And I needed to get her out of there. Melissa, that's another important point. As women together, we need to watch out for other situations and other women out there.
Right.
And we need to be in this together, that maybe we can't control every situation, but we can support each other. And that's just as important.
I think that's really, really important, especially when we hear about women's experiences in their daily lives at work. Like, how can we show up for them and be supportive of them? Which is one of the things we're actually going to be talking about at the conference. We have this really incredible speaker who's coming in, who she's a life coach, and she really talks about how, as we become more and more successful, we also get more and more opportunities to support each other as women in these spaces. And I think it's such an important thing, because you've alluded a little bit to your early experience as a woman and why you started your company, right? Like, you had experiences that were less than savory, and you were like, screw it. I'm going to go and do my own thing. And I'm going to do it so well, people are going to be blown away. Right. So can you talk a little bit about, you said a minute ago about how you would do things a little bit differently. So can you talk about how your early experiences drove you to start your company and then what you think is different now?
Yeah, I mean, my early experiences in the mortgage industry was during the time of subprime coming up, right? So think about that, right? It's funny, I just mentioned this experience the other day where I remember the day I walked into the CEO's office of a retail place that I was in charge of operations, and I said, I know this sounds really weird, but I think we have to stop doing government loans and we have to start offering Alt-A and subprime. I can still remember the day because I almost felt weird like saying that. Like, what do you mean you're not going to offer FHA and you're not going to offer VA? You're going to be offering these Alt-A subprime. And the reason why I had to do that is because I saw this market turning and it was kind of, what are you going to do? You can't keep offering something no one wants or no one is interested in, right? So I came up during this feeding frenzy of, all these people coming into our industry because of the money, because, I mean, these Wall Street firms and these, people were buying big fancy cars and houses and more money than they've ever experienced.
Yes.
I didn't enjoy that time in the mortgage industry. If there was one period of time that I was like, it wasn't comfortable in my skin, it was during that time.
Yes.
And for women during that time, you were two choices. You worked in operations, right? You were a processor, and I was in operations during that time, or you walked in to a company with stiletto heels this high, with a shirt all the way down to your cleavage. And these beautiful women were put as salespeople to try to get all the male loan officers to give them loans.
Wow.
Very uncomfortable.
Wow.
And so when the market turned to where subprime was falling and everything was shifting, you're right. I said, you know what? I love government loans. I enjoyed helping those first-time home buyers and the people that deserve those homes and those chances. And maybe somebody had a blip in their life and they need someone to understand that blip and they're going to get, their second chance. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to have women degraded wearing the stiletto heels and all of that. We're going to put women in leadership roles, and we are going to give them a seat at the table and a voice. And I'm going to use my emotional intelligence to build a team on a mission of helping to bring families home. And it's not all about the money. It's about the mission of the families. And so I saw a time that I didn't like and I didn't enjoy. And I decided I was going to take a chance on myself to make a difference in the world.
Yeah. I'm covered in the chills, Laura, because this is what we really want women to understand. When you're mission driven and you have a vision and you're willing to listen to it and follow it, then that is success. And that you make lots of money doing those kinds of things when you are in your zone of genius and you're connected to your mission and your vision of the world you want to see. Liz and I talk about that a lot. Like she too really enjoys those loans where you're putting people in their homes and you're solving complications and you're looking at credit and going, here are the things you can do to get into a house. And then you get to lead them all the way into their home.
That's right.
And I think that's what one of the things that really drove us to doing this conference is that we want to bring women to the stage in a way where the women in the audience that are part of the conversation can listen to women like you and go, oh, I can do this. Like I can listen to my mission and my purpose in this. And that's not to say that there aren't women out there who are really super driven by the money and the subprimes and all that stuff. And that's a thing. more often than not, what we're craving is these opportunities for leadership in a space that is very mission driven and thinking about how we're putting people in their homes for the very first time, or maybe the
and
third.
that's why women need to be at the leadership and executive levels within the mortgage industry, because we are so mission driven and we are so dedicated to the heart space where, yeah, I agree with you. It's funny that I always say when I made the least amount of money in my career was during the subprime. It's because it wasn't tied to my mission. So if you really look at the big picture, you're correct. And there's nothing wrong with being successful and being financially stable. We should all be encouraged to do that for our families and our legacy. That is a responsibility of us as women. So there is nothing wrong with that. But you are correct. When you tie that to your mission, you will always be more financially stable than when it's not the right fit.
And let me just say, the more money we make as women, the more we get to give it away to the world. So,
100%.
Yep, 100%.
100%.
And so, just really quick, one more thing I would really love to pick your brain about, and it is about why fundamentally these spaces that like we're creating with the Women in Mortgage Conference, why do you think these spaces are becoming more and more important as women are entering the field of mortgage as loan officers and producers in the mortgage industry? Why do you think these spaces where women are coming together are really important for support and leadership?
Women look at things differently, and it is impossible for us to grow as individuals and as leaders without coming together with like-minded individuals. Mm-hmm. It is very important that we come together to share. And listen, when I speak to so many women in the mortgage industry in so many different roles. And you're continually hearing, and you hear this too, you hear the negative voice in the back of the mind, the I'm not good enough, comparison to other people. And every single one, I actually just said this too. I said, everyone hears those voices. I don't care what position you hold. I don't care how successful you are. I don't care where you are in your life, men and women. And I said, the only thing I didn't say men, women, and children do not. Yeah. That is a learned behavior.
Absolutely.
And as adults, we fall into that. So these women's groups and organizations and all of this coming to light, we didn't have that. When I entered the mortgage industry, there was no such thing as women's groups. That did not exist. I was by myself trying to figure it out and my philosophy, I have to tell you, my philosophy was, I'm going to work 3 times as hard as any man that is in my organization, and that is how I'm going to get noticed. Yep. I did get noticed. It's ridiculous. I would never tell anyone to work 3 times as hard as anyone else. I missed a lot of important things in my life because I was working. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Yeah. Because now we together can share our collective experiences and guidance and support. And from that, we can learn, because like I just said, women are vital to the mortgage and real estate industry because of our connection to the families and our problem-solving skills and our relational ability. Because of that, we just look at things differently. And it's time for us to not be afraid to come forward, because together we've got this.
Ooh, so good. I love that so much. So good. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I love you so much. And you're going to be here in a couple weeks again. So it'll be
awesome.
Really fun. We'll talk
Always
about
happy. Thank you for
some
having
more mortgage
me.
Stuff. Thank you for having me. For those of you who are wondering, I will put the link to tickets and also sponsorship opportunities in the comments on Facebook, and you can join us online for our conference in February, where Laura will be speaking. We're going to be on a really amazing platform called Hopin. And so, no, it is not another boring Zoom meeting. There's going to be opportunities for speed networking, which is kind of like speed dating, only with awesome women. And there'll be great opportunities to meet and connect with our sponsors and all sorts of other really incredible speakers. And so the lineup is coming together on our website, and I'll make sure to give all that information in the comments. Laura, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Melissa. And get those tickets. It's going to be an amazing event.
Thanks so much.